Picture this. It's 1989 and you just got $200 to spend on a brand new gaming system. So, what would you choose? You could spend that money on a Nintendo Entertainment System with a vast library of games, but maybe you want something more powerful. You could get a TurboGrafx 16, however, there wasn't much buzz about the US version of the PC Engine. No, you most likely would do what most people did and get the brand new Sega Genesis. This system promised arcade-like graphics, high-definition sound, and came with an arcade port of Altered Beast. And at $189, it would fit right into your budget. Today, more than ever, people are collecting retro systems and games, and the Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive for our friends across the pond, is pretty reasonable on the pockets. So, I challenged myself to find the best mix of 10 games to start you off on your Sega appreciation journey, using the original budget you would have had back in 1989. Welcome to the Sega Genesis Startup Challenge. Now, there are some rules to this challenge. First and foremost, the games must come complete in box. The clamshell boxes and box art were one of the things Genesis got right, so I promise you'll want complete copies of games if you can get them. It's a great way to display your retro system, and they'll keep your cartridges dust-free. The price for these games had to be found online and accessible to everyone. So, I want you to think eBay, not yard sales. Finally, I try to challenge myself to have a good mix of game genres. It would be easy to load up this list with a bunch of cheap sports games, but that wouldn't be a great starter set. With that being said, let's start with the most critical part of your Genesis collection, the Genesis itself. The Genesis console had several different models, and even had different versions of the Model 1. But I was able to find a Model 2 Sega with the AV cords, power supply, and 2 controllers for $28. Now it's time for the fun part, the games. Sega's mascot is a must-own for anybody who would get a Genesis, and many people consider Sonic 2 one of the best. I'm personally fond of the original, but I'm in the minority. Sonic 2 introduced his partner Tails, which could be controlled by a second player, but it was better if you didn't try that. The 3D-like bonus levels were awesome, and the music was pretty decent too. Check this out. Giving Sonic a spin dash was also a big plus. Now that I think about it, maybe I do like the second one better after all. Anyway, it was also a pack-in title in the mid-90s and ended up being the second best-selling Genesis game in the US. So it is very easy to find. I was able to get a complete copy for $8. So, not a bad start. If you grew up in the 90s, you know all about Street Fighter 2 and that startup music. It was everywhere. They had several different editions of Street Fighter 2, a movie that was made about Street Fighter, and then a game that was made about the movie that was made about the game, which was really ridiculous, and we'll save that for another episode. But let me tell you, Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition is the one that you want to get. It starts you off with 12 playable characters, as opposed to 8 that you would get with just the regular Street Fighter 2. And whether your favorite character was Ryu or Ken, which both seem like to be the same guy, Chun-Li, Guile, or any of the other players, it was a ton of fun. Street Fighter 2 is what started the fight game revolution and is why the Genesis has a 6-button controller to begin with. The details in this game are incredible, with the art director traveling to places to get the backgrounds just right for people around the world to feel included. Now, it was a bit over the top and cartoony, but it's a game. That's part of the fun. The Street Fighter series is still very relevant today and going strong, but this will give you a chance to see what helped the beginning of the Street Fighter hype. I found a complete copy for $15, and that seems to be a normal price for a game that is more fun than 2 players than 1, but you can enjoy by yourself and have hours upon hours of fun. I know people who have owned this game for over 25 years and still haven't played through all the endings. I promise you, you won't regret this purchase. Beat 'em up games were everywhere in the 90s. Attach a popular character like Spider-Man to the picture and you have yourself a winner. Sort of. I mean, listen, are there better beat 'em up games out there? Sure, but that doesn't mean this was a bad game. One of the cool features about this was that you can get help from other superheroes like Captain America, Black Cat, Iron Fist, and a few others. However, there was some strategy too. Depending on who you were, whether you're Spider-Man or Venom, controlled how much those heroes would help you out. Another cool aspect, the cutscenes and story were taken directly from the comics, a first for a video game. And although beat 'em ups can be a little tricky and cumbersome, this one actually had a lot of things that switched it up a bit beyond just changing the backgrounds. Plus, there's something about beating up guys named Jeff and Brett who think they can take on Spidey in their bathrobes. I was able to find a complete copy with the red cartridge for $13. However, a little note, there was actually more of these special edition red cartridges released than there was the original. So if you can find a copy of Spider-Man and Venom Maximum Carnage that looks like every other Sega game, that's the rarer one. So hold on to it. The Genesis had its fair share of shooters, and my personal favorite is Super Fantasy Zone. But that wasn't released in North America, and it's about $175, so onward to my second choice, which is Biohazard Battle. In Japan, it was known as Crying, which I think is more of a kick-ass title, but hey, doesn't take away from the game. Is the game inspired by R-Type? Absolutely, but that's not a negative. The sea creature-like enemies, the fact you could choose between 4 characters, and the smoothness of the gameplay make it an awesome pick-up-and-play title. This is one of those games that's not hard to complete, not that hard to learn, but you'll want to play it over and over. I was able to find my copy with the clamshell for $20, and let me tell you, it's worth it. Not to mention the game still looks great today.
Here's the tip.
What is there to say about NBA Jam that hasn't been said before? This is one of those first games that I remember where the home port was just as fun as the arcade edition. It was a revolutionary title, as you didn't have to be a basketball fan in order to enjoy it. It did have real teams and real players, but the over-the-top moves and the secrets are really what made this game fun. Being from Philadelphia, having a chance to play as Will Smith, Jazzy Jeff, or Philadelphia Eagles quarterback Randall Cunningham made me think someone from my hometown designed the game. But you didn't need to play as Bill Clinton to have fun with Tournament Edition. Dunking on your opponents until the backboard breaks, hitting a 3 while your player was on fire, and hearing the announcer say,
"The nail in the coffin!"
was some of the most accomplished feelings in 90s gaming. It was no walk in the park either, beating every team in the league and ultimately winning the championship. The very worst feeling was to be up by 2 and the computer to have the last shot, because no matter where they were going to hit that 3.
Swish!
This is one of those games that's very fun to play by yourself, even more fun with a friend. And if you found a way to get the Sega 4-way, having 3 friends and 3 other controllers made this legendary. And getting a complete copy for $10 is practically a steal. Even if you can't buy a bucket, you can afford this. If you were looking for games that would define what the 90s was like, Earthworm Jim would have to be in the mix. It was extremely popular. Not only did it get a sequel, it got its own Saturday morning cartoon.
Earthworm Jim, he's such a groovy guy. Earthworm Jim, he rockets through the sky.
The funny thing about this was that this was supposed to be a parody game, making fun of all other superhero games, and ended up being one hell of a game in its own right. The humor was great, and the weirdness of the game was even better. I mean, listen, you're playing as an earthworm in a power suit, so let's start there. But then you get a chance to launch a cow into the sky, crows are trying to eat you, a fat guy is puking up fish as a way to kill you. Trust me, it's super weird, but you'll love every minute of it. Plus, the bonus levels are really fun even if you do get punished for not winning them. Now, this game is still really popular, so it's going to run you about $30 complete, but it is considered one of those legendary games that anyone who wants to explore the 16-bit world needs to play. Not to mention, it's still argued whether this version or the Super NES version was the better one, so you'll get a chance to judge that for yourself too. Movie titles nowadays are just a way for people to cash in on something that's popular in pop culture. With Disney games in the 90s, you were guaranteed to get an amazing game. Well, almost all the time. However, Aladdin was so good, they just released it on this generation's consoles so that way kids today could see what all the fuss was about. And Aladdin wasn't just really good, it was one of the best games on the Genesis. The Sega version also gave you a sword, unlike other versions of the game, and was quite a challenge. That magic carpet ride gave you flashbacks of the Battletoads Turbo Tunnel, and it still pisses me off today. Yet, it's one of those games that you feel you accomplished something when you finally beat it. It's not that hard to learn how to play, but it is very hard to master. The price fluctuates online, but I've seen quite a few copies between $10 to $13. Not only is this great for your startup kit, but it's one of those games that any Genesis lover should have in their collection. One of the later games to come out on the Genesis, Vector Man is really fun but has a bizarre backstory. You see, in 2049 we apparently leave Earth to colonize other planets while we leave robots to clean up the mess we left behind. One robot goes nuts after being attached to a nuke and decides, you know what, forget humans, now I'll run this.
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
Vector Man, who was in space when all this happens, comes back and is like, what's up with that? And decides he's going to take down the evil robot known as Warhead. So yeah, the story isn't that great, but this platformer is awesome. It looks beautiful for the system, and it has 16 levels, some different views, double jumps, and very challenging gameplay that's going to keep you busy. They did make a second Vector Man as well, which you could probably find around $20, but this Vector Man I think is the better of the two, and I was able to find my copy for 18 bucks. One of my personal favorites and one of the best games on any platform that's going to bring back some kid nostalgia. Rocket Knight Adventures was a reminder of a time when Konami could do no wrong, even if it was a ripoff of something that is pretty popular in today's culture. But you be the judge. So check this out. There's this ship called the Pig Star that can destroy planets. Now, what protects the Pig Star from getting into the wrong hands is defended by the Rocket Knights. And there's an orphan named Sparkster who is trained by the leader of the Knights to become one and take down an evil Rocket Knight who betrayed them. Axel Gear. Now, Axel Gear kidnapped Princess Sherry, to blackmail the king and telling them where the key to the seal is. However, only the princess knows the location of the secret. Now, there's no word on if Axel Gear is Sparkster's father or if Princess Sherry is his sister, but you get the idea. Add in the fact that you're fighting pigs, which now seems like Angry Birds ripped them off, and you get a surprisingly awesome game. It's kind of like Sonic with the sword, and if you think about it, that's pretty awesome. Now, it is a little pricey at $31 for a complete copy, but it's 7 levels of challenging fun. It has a huge replay value, as there is different levels that you can beat it on, and it's just out and out great to play. They did recently do another version on Xbox 360 and the PlayStation Network, but I'm telling you, play the original, you'll love it. Okay, so I cheated a little bit here, but this is the best way to get 6 classic games at a price that would be cheaper than just about any of them individually. There's a lot to unpack here, but you get Golden Axe, the original Sonic the Hedgehog, Streets of Rage, Columns, Revenge of Shinobi, and Super Hang-On for $15. Now to put that in perspective, Streets of Rage is about $53 right now. Revenge of Shinobi is about $60. And, well, you get the point. Basically, you get all 6 for a price that's cheaper than any of them. Sonic 1 is classic, very, very fun to play now, and it has multiple endings, so that makes it cool in its own right. Not to mention, it's still very, very challenging. Golden Axe and Streets of Rage can provide hours of beat 'em up fun by yourself or with a friend. Revenge of Shinobi takes you back to classic arcade platformers and still looks really good 30 years later. Super Hang-On is a great racing game, and Columns is a nice puzzler to change it up a bit. You can spend weeks on this 6-pack alone. Having something like this is incredible. It was a great gift Sega gave to people who were loyal to the Genesis. You'll want to pick this up. When you add up all of the game prices, you get exactly $200, which is what you would have spent back in 1989 when you include tax and everything like that. To get a classic console, 15 games, and an extra controller for that price is pretty decent. Not to mention the nostalgia you're going to feel, the challenges you're going to have, and a reminder that the technology wasn't that bad back then. It's going to make you just feel good inside. Now, could you have more games within this budget if you decided not to have the boxes? Sure, but let me tell you, having these clamshells are a great way to deploy your collection out to the public and add a little style to your retro. I'm Chic Styles, and if you like this video, make sure to subscribe. More will be coming soon.